Hi, I'm Iris with In-Frame Visual Arts. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make decorative mosaic napkin ring holders out of toilet paper rolls. Let's get started. Let's go over the supplies that you're going to need. Sandpaper that you might need to help sand down the glue when it hardens on the toilet paper rolls. Glue, and today I'm using the Titebond. I also use Elmer's glue. I like both. Triple Thick is your glaze, your final glaze on the product. Bottle of water. You need mortar. This is Mosaic and Glass Tile Mortar by Mapei, or Mapei. I apologize if I'm saying it wrong. I have my cut glass. I also use food coloring for this, for coloring my mortar. So this is the McCormick Culinary Blue Food Coloring. Pair of scissors. I'm using black acrylic paint today by Liquitex. I have a bowl for mixing my mortar. I have a little container for pouring my Liquitex in, a brush and a pencil and a ruler. And that's it. Let's get started. First up, we'll prepare the toilet paper rolls so they'll be sturdy enough to hold the mortar and any other decorative items that you want to add to your rings. I want 6 rings. And the toilet paper rolls that I have are a little bit over 4 inches. I want to mark mine at 2 inches. Mark it in one place, roll it around, and mark in a second spot. So it'll be easy for you to cut with your scissors. Squish it down just a little bit. Line your scissors blade up with both lines and cut. Then I take these and measure for the next roll, so they're hopefully as close to the right size as possible. Okay, now that we have everything cut, I want to dip these in glue, and then we'll put them in the oven and dry them so they're very rigid and hard before we start working with the mortar. So I've mixed up my Titebond with a little bit of water here, stirred it up really well, and I take a water spritzer bottle and spray just a light mist on the toilet paper rolls because it helps break the surface tension and the glue will stick much better, soak in to the paper too. And then I dip and just roll it around. I will take a brush and paint the next one. I always use parchment paper to work on because that you can throw away once you're finished with it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Stick that over here on our pan. 2 more to go. So dipping or painting your glue on works fine. Just a note about Titan glue, when it dries, it has a little bit of an amber color to it, unlike Elmer's glue, which will dry completely clear. We're done with this. Alright, we're done. And now I will put these in the oven for probably 15 or 20 minutes. It may not even take that long for this to dry, and it should be hard. And please don't go over 200 degrees because it will probably burn the toilet paper. So anything like between 150 to 190 degrees should be fine. And I'll be right back. All 6 of my rings are now dry, and I want to check them for any rough edges. So take a little piece of sandpaper and go along the edges and sand down the rough part of the glue. The next thing that I want to do is paint the inside of the rings with food coloring and glue. So I've got all 6 painted on the inside, and now we're going to play the waiting game. Once this dries, we'll move on to the outside, and that means we'll be working with the mortar and the glass pieces. So stay tuned. Now I'm ready to start mixing the mortar. I added 6 heaping teaspoons of mortar in this little plastic container, and you mix less water than you may think. I'm going to start by adding 6 level teaspoons of water to this mortar. And stir it up and see how much more I will have to add. So it looks like just maybe another teaspoonful or 2 of water. So that makes 8 level teaspoons that I've added so far. You want it thicker than pancake batter because you need it to hold the glass that you'll be adding, or any other decorations you want to be adding to the rings. Okay, once this is mixed, I want to add my food coloring to the mortar. So I've decided that I want to go all blue with the inside of the cup and the outside mortar. And this is just adding and stirring and adding and stirring until I get the intensity of the color that looks good. Now that I have this mixed up to the color that I like, make sure that you lay out your ceramic tiles, your decorations that you're going to put on your rings. Now we're going to start using a stir stick or popsicle stick, and we'll pick up some and start smearing this on. The thickness, you want it to be as thick as your glass. In this case it's 2/16 of an inch wide or deep, because you want to bury the piece, bury it into the mortar up to the top of the glass piece. Once you have it on really thick, you can go back with a wet brush and start smoothing it out. And now that you have everything smooth, the edges you can clean up after you put your design, your glass into it. You can go back and do final touches on it. So have an idea as to what you want to do with your design. Let me set this aside over here. And start placing your glass pieces. Ah, it's so pretty already. So anyway, you get the idea, and I will stop here and finish up, and I'll come back when we get ready to go to the next step. Now that I have all my glass pieces embedded in the mortar, I'm going to take my brush, a wet brush, and just lightly wipe over the mortar and smooth out the rough edges. After looking at this a little more, I think I want to make the blue more intense. So I'm going to take my food coloring, my brush, and just drop it all around in the grout or in the mortar. And I'm going to get a really dark, intense blue. Okay, I think I've got everything covered here, and I'll let that dry. Well, I'm finished. This was the job. I have 6 napkin ring holders completed with mortar and cut glass, and everything is still wet right now. So I will have to probably let this set overnight, and then I will come back and clean it up and the final stage would be to glaze it. So check back with me later. Good morning. I let my napkin ring holders sit in the oven overnight at a temperature just slightly below 200 degrees, and they're nice and hard this morning. But some of the glass had mortar still on it, and some of the food coloring was smeared across it. So I took my fingernail and I was able to scratch off any mortar that was laying across the surface of the glass, and then I took a damp cloth and I wiped off the dust and the food coloring that was left. I've decided to add more food coloring throughout the piece, so I'm brushing that all over my ring. And after I finish adding this food coloring to the outside, I think I'm going to go back and add acrylic paint on the inside of the rings to cover up some of the smudges that I accidentally put on the inside with the mortar. I just took these out of the oven again after putting the second coat of food coloring on it. But let's recap. I took 6 rolls of 2-inch wide toilet paper rolls and painted glue on the inside and the outside using either Titebond glue or Elmer's glue. Let that dry. Then I mixed up my mortar and added food coloring to it. And I used food coloring because I didn't have any other dyes for my mortar. It was a white mixture, so I wanted to make the mortar blue. So I used food coloring and then added my decorative glass to the mortar. Then put it in the oven overnight for about 190 degrees. And this morning it was nice and hard, but some of the blue food coloring had faded a bit. So I added more food coloring to that. And I took that opportunity to paint the inside of the rings with acrylic paint. And painted the inside, cleaned off the surface here, put it back in the oven, and now we're ready to add a final glaze to it. I'll be using the Triple Thick Brilliant Brush On Gloss Glaze. That's my favorite. So take a nice wide brush, and I brush gently, almost dropping the glaze on the surface, over the glass also. You can either paint this on with a thin layer at a time, or you can drop it on so that it is much thicker, but then you have to watch it and make sure that you don't have any big drips forming. And you have to continually rotate this so they don't form. So whichever you have the patience for. The inside of the rings will also be painted with the glaze. And you really do not want to add any external heat to this. You want this to air dry. And glaze, the Triple Thick, does dry surprisingly fast. So if you're putting the glaze on really thick, you want to make sure you're continually rotating this so the drips do not form until it dries. This is, you'll have to have a little patience with this. But if you can do that, it's going to be beautiful. So I'm going to be doing this with all the other pieces, and I'll be back when I'm finished. Stay tuned. We're done. I let these air dry and they look beautiful. I love the intensity of the blue, so the food coloring was wonderful. And the Triple Thick lets the glass shine through. They're very, very shiny. I think this would be beautiful on any table. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.